Hello, everybody. My name is Sue Ellis-Saller, and I'm here from Spiritual Business Spotlight today with Becca Rich, who is a holistic time management coach, correct?
Yes, that's me. Hi.
Hi, it's so nice to meet you. And I think that what you're doing is fabulous. It's something that a lot of people kind of take for granted. So can you tell us a little bit about your work and yourself and
Yeah, of course.
intro?
Yeah, so I love starting with just my why, right? Like my story, and I trace it back to like the moment I was born. My parents worked all the time. My dad started his business when he was 15 years old. And so when I would, like he's an entrepreneur. Everyone in my family is an entrepreneur. And my mom was in the medical field. So both parents were very absent. And time was one of those things that they never had. And so I grew up with that mentality and went to go study to become an engineer. First semester in college, I burnt out, went to the hospital, had an intestinal infection, and I realized how much of my worth was in my achievements, my success. Like, it's that typical burnout story, but really what has happened over the last 8 years since then was, still becoming an engineer, still working in a cube, still doing all of that, but then also taking the time to become a yoga teacher, an astrology person, and Reiki healer, and like all of those things to heal myself. And so through that experience now, combining, both sides of my brain, I get to help people be strategic. I work with solopreneurs and small business owners, and to be strategic so they have time for themselves, have time for their families, have time for the things that really truly matter to us, that make us human beings. And so, yeah, that's kind of my why, my story, and how I got to be here today.
Well, I'm sorry that you had to go to that. And I understand that, though. I think that 50s post-war mentality was very much like you go to school, you go to work, you get a job. If you can do an extra shift, if you can pick up extra hours, whatever extra things you can do, and I myself had that pounded into my head as well. And then when you turn into an adult, you just kind of go along with that same cycle. But yeah, I feel like so many people, and even with the pandemic, have even more hit a brick wall, because we then, since we're working from home, the computer doesn't go away,
Right.
And I think it was getting to that before, actually, too, with, just everybody having their phone in their bedroom, answering text messages, and entrepreneurs. Oh my gosh, we are, kind of on it 24/7, or else, we kind of fear losing our clients.
Right. Yeah. And that's why I love working with entrepreneurs. One, obviously, because I am one. Two, because, my whole family is. But really, three is because, like, our businesses are our babies. They're our passions. We care so much, especially in the service-based industry of online business, like being of service to our clients. Like, we want to do these things. We want to work. But yeah, there comes, a point in our journeys in our business to want to make it sustainable. We don't want to fall out of love with our businesses, if we're just like grinding and never stopping to actually enjoy the freedom that, we caused, or we wanted our business to create in our lives. And so, yeah. And, also adding to your point of like, it's our society. And so I have a huge rebellious streak inside of me. I'm like, let's rebel against all the, systems and structures. Like, it's really cool to be like, when you rest and slow down and change the way that you live life and take action and work in your business, like you are actively changing our society, changing our culture. Could you imagine if like, the statistic that I think of is 70% of business, or 70% of Americans want to own their own business, right? Because they want time freedom. They don't want to be stuck in a cube. They want flexibility. And so imagine if 70% of Americans ran their business and did so sustainably and not work 72 hours a week, which is the average of small business owners. And
Wow.
so, yeah, it's really, as you can tell, I get like super like passionate and heated about this, but I want to change our society. Like I want to change the way that we work and live.
Yeah, yeah, me too. And I think that you hit on a few different things like expectations, really kind of strategically showing up in our work and everything, because those two things, like, and especially being a spiritual entrepreneur, I think a lot of people are like, ooh, strategy. I don't have time for strategy. I don't like systems. Ooh, that's so ucky. And then once you get into it, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so free.
Right. Yeah. And it's really interesting, we often like crave more time, crave more freedom, but like a lot of people don't really know what they would do with that time and freedom. And so I think that that stops us from wanting to create systems in our businesses and create efficiency and there's a fear, and it's a totally valid fear, right? Like you have to know yourself well to know what you want to do with your free time, or it's going to feel scary. So yeah, there's so many reasons why a lot of people like just want to continue to be busy and work all the time. And that's been my personal journey over the last year, quitting my engineering job and like being a digital nomad and working 3 days a week. Like it really has been about just figuring out what I would do with myself not working.
I'm all like the opposite. I'm like, I know what I could do with myself. But I feel like, part of it is for me was learning to turn off. Like I have to turn off the bings. I have to turn off and even when my clients are like messaging me throughout the day, I'm just like, you know what? I can't like get up and take the dog out and give my kids a snack and then try and focus on what I was writing and then let the dog back in, and it's just like all of these little distractions
Yeah.
take us
And
away.
yeah, it that's why I love bringing like the yoga practice back into like time management, is because um, the yoga practice is about teaching you how to be present, sit in uncomfortable poses, and just breathe. And so, all the different things that our yoga practice teaches us, like spiritually, mentally, physically, goes hand in hand in my brain, at least, with time management. To manage your time properly and get the things that you want to get done, it's all about being in the present moment. It's all about knowing who you are and using the things that you know about yourself to manage your time better. And the concept of time really technically isn't real. And so there's like this whole piece in the yoga practice of like defining like what your practice means to you, and likewise with time management, defining what time means, what productivity means to you, because it's different for each of us. So yeah, you got to flow with it. You got to align yourself and flow, and that's the yoga practice too.
Wow. Yeah, I never thought about it that way. I never thought I often correlate, like pushing softly and breathing through things and breathing into that like stretch of a pose, but not where it's hurting,
Yeah.
But I never thought about that as far as time, like adding time management into the realm of that.
Oh yeah, I love it.
Yeah, definitely. Like when somebody reaches out to you for a coaching session or wants to talk to you, what's usually like they come to you and they're just like, oh my gosh, I'm so frazzled, or what does that look like?
Yeah. So one of my favorite things to say around this is like really time management is about pruning than adding. So you don't need to add like all these tools and techniques and hacks and apps and all these things that like we think of when we think of time management, right? It's like read that latest book to work, less or be more efficient, which is great. There's some great tips in there, but it's really getting back to like the essence of who you are, and defining like what we talked about, like figuring out what you want to do with your time, whether it's free time or working time, like getting really clear on who you are, your values, some people don't know what they want. And so I think that, um, wherever you are in your phase of business or life or whatever, like it's coming back to the essence of who you are and your values, which is, um, one of the first things that I do with my clients is like, what are your core values today? Knowing that they can change and morph as you evolve and grow. But what are your values that you want to live by? And then how do those values relate to how you spend your time, how you plan, how you take action? One of my favorite examples is if you value ease, right? Um, you know, Living in ease, like a life full of ease. When you try and overschedule yourself and you have all of these things going on, it's not going to feel good because you value ease. Also, if you value compassion and you are beating yourself up for never getting enough done or never being productive enough, like that is not living your life in alignment with your values. And so it's really coming to terms with like where you are today, how you're living your values, how you're not living your values, and what are they first and foremost. But yeah, that's like one of my favorite exercises and activities when it comes to working with someone who's like frazzled and scattered and all over the place. It's like, let's breathe, let's come back to our bodies, come back to like who we are, and start from there.
And that's really interesting, though, because it almost seems like people are scattered and frantic, and because they can't connect with their inner peace, and it's almost like they're overcomplicating things to make up for a lack of wanting to look inside themselves. Is that kind of what I'm hearing you say?
Yeah, for sure. And it goes back to just our society of like wanting to be busy and busy and busy and busy because getting to know who we are, getting to understand that like we are enough just as we are, like today in this moment, like you are enough. And so coming to realize that has been my journey over the last, like I said, 8 years of I don't need to work harder. I don't need to work more. I don't need to get more done. To prove that I'm worthy. And I feel like a lot of us it's hard for us to actually notice that we put our worth in our to-do list. But like, some examples of what I see with us entrepreneurs is like, of obviously adding more and more to your to-do list is like a very easy one. But, waking up in the middle of the night with ideas, which is amazing, but at the same time, like to be able to sleep is necessary to live your life, properly. And so that's probably one of a really common one of just like always having ideas and ideas and ideas and like feeling like you have to rush them out, or that there's like a high stakes like pressuring you to get everything done, so. And there's so many different examples of how we put our worth in our to-do list and in our achievements. But yeah, like coming back to I kind of went on a tangent there, but yeah, it's really easy for us to just put our nose down and work and like yeah, it's a lot.
Well, and you mentioned one thing that I run into, because I work with a lot of clients as well, and there's this like, oh my gosh, I got this hit of inspiration, so therefore I must create this whole thing, like put all of these things that I've already got halfway, 3/4 of the way, 98% of the way done, and work on this one thing that just came to me in the middle of the night. And it's just like, wait, put that on the shelf for a second and like finish the thing, like carry this thing through all the way to the end. Do you see the same thing coming up too?
Yeah, so there's definitely like a middle ground. I because I try and like have I want to try and see both sides to it. So like I also, I see a side where it's like your entrepreneurs are starters, they just have ideas, they just want to start things, like all of that stuff. Like what you were just talking about. But then there's also like a creativity that is alive within us. And so we have to like stop ourselves from always starting and never finishing, but then we also need to nourish that creativity. And, you know, a great example, I just, I follow astrology. I don't know if you do. I'm sure you do. But astrology, like my astrologer over the last like couple weeks has been like, don't take action on your ideas. Like let them simmer. And I did. And so now over the last couple of weeks, because of where I'm at, like in my journey, I'm kind of shifting. And so I just wrote like a email sequence, like spent time on it, all of these things. And because my astrologer told me not to take action because I'm going to change my mind or I'm going to shift or, you know, whatever, now I'm going to rewrite it. And I find that we often do this is when we get that hit of inspiration, we don't let it simmer. We take action on it right away. And that often leads us to like, I don't want to say wasting time because that's subjective, but sort of kind of wasting time, you know, like that whole time that I was spending writing this email sequence, like if I just jotted it down and journaled about it and let it simmered, then, you know, later down the road, I would have gotten clarity and I would have shifted without spending all of that time writing it. And so that's just a really simple example of like, I'm still running into like wanting to take action because I'm balancing that, like wanting to be creative and nourish that creativity and write and have fun and be playful. But then also like, I need to we all need to like figure out what is in alignment before we take action, right? We need to know who we are and where we're going before we just like go quick action. So yeah, I don't know if that was helpful.
No, that was really good because, you know, and I've been like kind of grounded into like we're in the Capricorn thing, and then we got the Leo full moon yesterday, and just everything, and for me, the Capricorn energy was like, you know, kind of laying foundations and really, you know, and I've been having so much fun within my creativity lately, and just like, you know, doing little things that have felt good. And I think there's a difference between doing the things that feel good and doing the things that you're just like, feel like you have a weight around your neck and you're just doing it because you're supposed to, or you have to, or, you know, for whatever reason.
I was actually just talking to my therapist about this exact thing. Like she asked me what was the difference in my she's a somatic therapist, and what is the difference in my body. And so I love that you use that like analogy of like feeling like, meh, you know, like I'm just doing this because I have to, like you fold in on yourself. So I think that when you know that you want to do something, it's like, you know, the opposite. You like expand and you grow and you can breathe lighter, and it, you know, it happens quickly. So yeah, I think that cueing into your body obviously is like one of the best things that we can do as humans, because our bodies tend to know so much more than my mind does.
Oh yeah, totally. And we can like, you know, kind of check in with ourselves and with our bodies and just be like, how does this feel actually?
Yeah.
Now, I was looking at your Instagram account, and it has a lot to do with like clearing out your calendar and probably like your inbox too, because right now I think I have 41,000 emails in one inbox and 150,000 unread emails in another inbox. Because, you know, you just sign up for everything. Like, I've been on the internet for 20 years now, and I have email, you know, coming from stuff that I signed up for a long time ago.
Yeah.
Do you feel like those are time wasters or?
So yeah, I think that I'm like having two thoughts about it. So starting from like when you have a ton of stuff, right? It's like that scattery, like jumpy, you know, if it doesn't feel good to you in your physical body, then yes, it's probably not in alignment with your core values, right? Always come back to your values. And so if that's happening, then like doing some research on what tools you can use to like quickly shift that, change that, whatever. So there's, you know, there's physical tools out there to like help you just like delete everything or unsubscribe you from everything. You can also like, you know, I would say just delete it all, because like keeping on to it is really just emotional baggage, right? And that's more regards to your email. It can apply to your calendar as well, as like if you're putting in too much into your calendar. But I would say also, if you're starting from a place with your calendar where you have nothing, I find that a lot of entrepreneurs just put, I feel like there's two sort of archetypes with your calendar. You either only put your appointments in there, and it's like, that's it. And then you have a to-do list that you never get done, and it's just Post-it notes all over your desk everywhere. Or it's like, you time block every single moment of every single day, and then it's like super stressful and overwhelming and chaotic and scattery as well. So, whatever boat you're in, you can simplify. You can come back to your core values and align your calendar with those pretty easily. Inbox is a little different, especially if you have 100,000 emails. But yeah, like you could totally, of course, like what I would say is find some support, or just take the time to go inwards and get clear on your values. And then how does that connect or disconnect to what your current inbox looks like, or your current calendar looks like? I have a whole spiel on how to set up your calendar, in alignment with your best self. And yeah, I love doing digital calendar work, but yeah.
If somebody's sitting down with you doing a digital calendar thing, do they like say, okay, here's the amount of work? Like, I think I would say a lot of us entrepreneurs want to do the 20-hour work week, the 3 days a week, deal with as many clients as we can in those 3 days, and then have everything else clear.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Is it possible?
That's what I do.
Really?
Yeah, I just work Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Today was just like one of those days where I'm just doing this interview, and then before this and after this, I'm chilling out. But yeah, like once you come to terms with like what is a true priority, like I said, time management is all about pruning things out of your life. So and not necessarily pruning things that you love, right? I want to make sure that we know that it's like the things that aren't serving you, that are not making you feel good. And once you do that, like a lot of entrepreneurs start their business. Like I started my business in my cube at lunch. I would go to my car and host a call at lunch. That was my business for the first year. So if I worked, 5 hours a week starting my business, like a lot of my clients are transitioning, from 9 to 5 cube life to full-time entrepreneurship, or they're already full-time and, they're continuing to work to be more sustainable. And so, like I always say, if you can start your business with a 9 to 5, you can replace that entire 40 hours a week with whatever you want to, And so it's really about, that's why I love working with people that have 9 to 5s as well, is because I was there, right? And I know that when you are super busy and you have all these things, you're really good at like getting to them all for the most part. But really it's about holding that structure and then just using that 40 hours a week to do whatever you want.
Wow, that would be nice. And like that would be really good. So do you feel though that it takes an up level individually of you valuing your time in a different way as well? Because I think that's especially for spiritual entrepreneurs who I work with, it's just like give. And then there's this like kind of disconnect. And I feel it within myself too of, being affordable, but also making it worth my time to work that much.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
For sure. I think, there's a lot of stuff that goes underneath and is, enmeshed sort of with our beliefs around time. Like, we've mentioned a couple of times now, like with society and culture, like we are just constantly bombarded with messaging of you don't get enough done in your time frame and all of that. And so, it doesn't matter what you believe alone, you're still getting all of these messages, beating down on us. But then just, as an individual, like as I have redefine my value with my time and with my worth and with my values, like I don't have a problem pricing. And obviously there's a whole like discussion around pricing when it comes to accessibility and things like that. And I'm not a business coach, so I just want to like be clear, but like I definitely have found that as I spend my time, more in alignment with my values, I treat my time with more respect and more, worth and more grace. And so yeah, like, it's really easy for us to not value our time. We're taught to value money over time, when in reality, like time is our life. Like legitimately, your time is your life. And so if you want to spend your time in the way that you continue to spend it, like that is your choice. And it doesn't change overnight. Like I said, like my journey has been over the last 8 years that I've been doing this work of going inwards and healing and doing a lot of like mindset excavation, inner child work, like so many different things of understanding why I didn't like value myself. And so when you start to value yourself, you value your time a little bit more and more and more, and it grows and grows. And it'll be easier to say no to things. I know a very common thing is like saying yes and yes and yes to all the things, and you want to do it all, and it's beautiful, but then it's also, it's a double-edged sword there. So, yeah, as you redefine your time and create boundaries that work for you, at first it's going to feel hard. It's going to feel hard to rest. It's going to feel hard to slow down and pick and choose what feels good. And that's why, support is so helpful, because someone can be like, oh, you like, this is in alignment with your values. Like, do you want to do this? Like just double checking, compassionately and gently just checking in with you and how you're doing and what you're saying yes and no to and spending your time on is really important for that awareness piece,
Yeah, I love that too, because we are taught to say yes. And again, back to the societal conditioning, people are taught to push until they get a yes from you, and to bargain, and to like, but like you said, once you're doing that internal work, once you're shifting the way that you see your time and you value your time. And I think that's why I think your work is so important, because I think that we all have these like whatever 12 hours a day that are really like our waking hours, and that we get to choose like, okay, am I going to sit with people who, I don't know how to say it, like I would prefer to hang out with my kids and my husband and take time to do yoga, or to like do my own thing and keep my client work in, like a neat little 5-hour box in the day.
Yeah.
And then, yeah.
Yeah, I love that. One of the questions that I really had to ask myself and get clear on years ago was like, what am I missing out on by working all of the time? And I still have to come back and ask myself that when I'm finding myself overworked, because it is ingrained in all of us. It's a resistance, it's rebellion against all the messaging that we know. And so yeah, it's like, what are you missing from working all of the time? And that is going to motivate, the majority of people to being like, oh, wait, I'm missing out on, my parents missed out on me growing up. Like my dad literally wasn't there at my birth because he was working. And so I think, that's a pretty dramatic example, but we miss out on the subtlety of life. Like the whole point of being on this planet is to be human and live and not necessarily work all of the time. And so there is obviously the whole concept of a work-life balance. We need to work to survive in the systems that we live in, but there is a way to do both and be successful and value your humanness and rest and value your time.
Right. No, and I love that too, because that's one of the things that kind of shifted my own perspective is sitting here. I'm an online reader too. So I was sitting here doing readings for clients. My little son, who was not high as my table, it's like, hey, Mom, you want to play? I'm like, hang on, I'm doing this thing. There's only so much time that they're young. And with my daughter too, I lived in America at the time. You don't get any maternity leave. I was a single mom, so I was back to work, as soon as possible. And it's just, yeah, like you said, it's just ridiculous. We're like not living these lives that we even envision for ourselves or see ourselves. Like I would have much preferred to be like hanging out with my kid and playing and doing all of this stuff, but you have to go to work and then you have to go to university so that you can get a better job. And then, it's just, I'm glad that there's somebody out there, more than one person out there trying to shift the paradigm here.
Yeah, it's something that I'm writing an essay right now about time liberation. So it's this concept of time is used as a tool by capitalism, by racism, by all of these structures in our society that are harmful and oppressive. They use time as a tool to oppress our humanness. And so I think that kind of just like sums it up of my work. Like it is oppression, like legitimately in every sense of the word, it is oppression. And so I'm so sorry that you had to experience that with your daughter having to go back to work. And it's really important to just always remember that in each moment, when your kid comes up to you and wants to play, like coming from a kid that, my parents did that to me, it's like a wake-up call of how I want to, be to my spouse, my husband, to my friends, the people in my life, eventually my kids in a couple of years, or if that happens. But it's coming back to remembering that in each moment, like what is more valuable to you. And society tries to tell us that it's work, but I promise you it's not always work.
Well, yeah, and it's not always work. It's not always so much money. That's one of the other things that I'm thinking about right now. Like, really, like, does my monthly money goal really align with what I truly need? And I feel like there's like this lean towards excessive as being minimum,
Yep. I love that. I love that you connected the dots to that, because I worked with an anti-oppression, liberation business consultant. And one of the exercises to pricing your work is getting out your monthly expenses, obviously, but then also savings, spending money, whatever it is, that the number that would actually feel enough, which is a whole, internal question, and you go inwards there. But then after that, that's how you price your hourly rate. So like all you have to do is just sustain that number, and you can save money, you can invest, like whatever you choose to allocate all those things that you do. But it goes hand in hand with time, of course. And so what is the bare minimum that you need to do? I've been playing a lot around like, what is the bare minimum that you need to schedule to then get the money that you need to make to just sustain? And so, yeah, like a lot of my work and my business, like my personal work is around that right now. After, redefining my worth and my time and going through that journey. So, it's a whole thing. It's just all so intertwined.
Well, yeah. And like I said, I love the fact, like, I really feel like the economy is shifting right now, and the way that we are working. And like you said, understanding that capitalism is trying to take all of our energy and life force in some ways and like put it towards, exploiting everything else. And I'm really understanding a lot more that my energy and time, and like they're saying, did you watch that Social Media? I forget what the name of the Netflix movie was about the social media and how they were like weird. and how they draw our attention back into that. But I feel like that has also this big, kind of piece in this as well.
Oh yeah, I have strict boundaries with time on my phone. Actually, so I can't get on any app on my phone except for like obviously like messenger calls if I need to. But any social, like nothing really aside from that. And from 8 p.m. it cuts off to 10 a.m. So I can't I literally have a password that my husband knows. I don't even know, and I just can't go on my phone. And then when it's open, I have 45 minutes total on, I think it's like Facebook and like all the normal social media apps that I have during that window from like 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. So I'm very I have strict rules and boundaries with social media. On my computer, I can't scroll through Facebook. I have a news feed blocker. Which I think is, a lot of people are starting to get more and more in tune with like what boundaries they need to have with social media to feel sane. It literally depletes, like you said, our energy, our life force, like our attention, our creativity. Like there's so many negative side effects to it, but we have to be on it to run our businesses. We don't have to, but that's my strategy right now. I love connecting with folks. So just creating boundaries is how, the path forward for me.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was the one thing, like I tried to do the feed blocker thingy, but because I do also social media management. So like that interaction with people, but yeah, making it, really very intentional. And probably putting boundaries on it too. Like I can intentionally look at my feed for a half an hour and probably get everything that I need to do done. But how many times has any of us gone to look up a recipe and then we get sidetracked by this little picture of somebody here, and then we're just like, oh, those are cute earrings. I'm going to look those up. And then, half an hour later, you wake up almost from this doze and you're just like, wait, dinner is not done yet. And I just wasted half an hour.
And wasted is a little, like I said earlier, the wasted is subjective. I often think about what is actually wasting time, and that's because I have an engineering mind and all the things that I think of. But it's you learned, you connected, probably you got value sometimes, most of the time, to be honest with you, unless you're that's another thing of making my timeline educational and purposeful and intentional too. I know that's there's specific coaches and people out there that help you make your digital space well and feel good. But my news feed on Instagram or Facebook, it's intentional, it's purposeful. So I'm always learning something new on my feed when I'm scrolling. And so there is value. I value education. I value learning new things. And so I have to remember, instead of beating myself up for wasting time, it really is that perspective shift of no, but I did learn, this cause that I donated to, or I learned about this thing or that thing. And so there's some benefits to it, as long as, you create the intentionality, like you said, behind it. So yeah, it's it's challenging. We're all navigating it together.
Oh yeah. Because this is something that really didn't even exist in people's homes until mid 90s, really.
Yeah, I can't imagine what it would be like growing up with my parents on social media all the time instead of working. It's so weird to think about.
It's almost the same thing though. It just turns into a non existent parent in a way.
Yeah. It's not present.
Yeah. And that's how I grew up too. And I think that our generation too was a little different in terms of, a lot of latchkey kids, a lot of, I don't know how old you are, but like I said, I mean, when I was when my daughter was growing up, we got our first computer in the home when she was 5. So she grew up kind of with that half attention that comes with having a computer in the house. And then they've got phones now and, the whole 9 yards. So it's just like, wow. And I feel like it's almost like getting into a crisis point in some situations because we're just not at all. But is it really?
We're talking about like a huge question of like the meaning of our society right now. Like I think it's a potential crisis point for sure. But like we all have, most of us have a story of some rock bottom in our lives. And so I'm crossing my fingers that this is sort of rock bottom for our society, in terms of, the structures and systems that are in place. And it's time to restructure them. It's time to reinvent. It's time to innovate. It's time to make massive change. And we see it happening every day now. And hopefully, especially with us entrepreneurs, like because we're on social media a lot, we're on our phones, we're on, technology, especially for the people who are, more conscious, they want to be sustainable. They started their business not to just make money, to also be flexible and free with their time. And I think I have hope and faith that we're creating boundaries that feel good and continuing to, there's so many people on the internet now that are all talking about digital wellness and boundaries and things with their technology. So I'm crossing my fingers. I'm hopeful, even though sometimes it doesn't feel as hopeful.
Well, yeah. Like with Clubhouse, even now, like I love the idea of interaction, and I love the idea of because it just seemed like everything was kind of turning into a billboard and, like zero interaction with people. But then I see this oh yeah, I was on Clubhouse 18 hours yesterday. And not me personally, because just oh, okay, this is another thing that's going to take attention away that I want to be much more intentional about how I'm spending my time. So,
I do, of course, like the concept of communicating and connecting with one another for sure. Clubhouse is a problematic app in itself, but no, I think that as you get clear on your values and spend your time more in alignment with them, and then you prove to your own brain that you can do it, like the things that I help my clients with, it doesn't cause as much FOMO anymore. Like a lot of people are experiencing FOMO for not being on Clubhouse or not doing this or that, or whatever platform that you're missing out on, in the shiny objects of the courses that you didn't buy or challenges you didn't sign up for. There's that FOMO of not being able to participate. And so when you get clear on your values and your time and your priorities, what has happened in my personal life as well as my clients is there's not so much of that shiny object, jump from thing to thing to thing, sort of energy in how you take action. Like you are, focused in a way that feels good to you, not in a strict and rigid way, but of course, every moment of every day, choosing to spend the time that you have on this planet in alignment with who you are. So I'm very grateful and fortunate to not have as much FOMO as I did in the past. It's a real thing. And if you're experiencing it, I just have a Google Doc of all of the things that I've wanted to participate in. And I just post a link, and it's there. And then, I call it my shiny object box, and it helps me just get it out of my mind, get it out of that judgment should part of me. And, tell myself I can come back to it later, which, this brings me back to your email or calendar. When you add more and more and more, I feel a lot of it comes back down to that FOMO energy, whether it feels like FOMO or not. It's I'm missing out on something, so I need to say yes to everything. So yeah, deleting all the emails in your inbox because you're not missing out on anything. Delete more stuff in your calendar because you're not missing out on anything. The more and more that you come back to who you are and and connect with, your spirit guides, higher power, universe, whatever you want to call them, it you remember your true nature, and you remember that you are enough, and you remember that you don't need to work harder to get to some place that is not even really technically real. So, yeah, kind of summarizing our conversation up a little bit.
No, but I love that too. And I love the fact that you're talking about focus, and you're talking about make a little shiny object place for you to put all of these ideas and then see if they stick. Because sometimes they're just like, oh, this is such a fabulous idea. Like you were saying with your astrology, who you follow. And then it's like, wait, that wasn't the greatest idea in the whole world. So having that shiny object box, or having that, like, I got a message, I have to get it out. Okay, I'm going to write it down and I'll see if I can come back to that or not. Like I have like 7 books like that in my Google Docs, and I open them from time to time. I'm like, wow, this is really great, but I just don't have but what you're talking about, like, whoosh, whoosh, get away from me, all you things. And I am focusing right now. I love that.
Yeah. And it just makes me think of, so this summer, my husband and I, when we left New Orleans and, sold all the things that we own, we went to Idaho and lived off the grid for 4 months. And, it was like viscerally that experience of, chopping things like your limbs off, just like getting rid of everything. I know that was so many people's experience with COVID, right? You don't need to commute to work anymore if you were working, outside your home. I was teaching yoga. I stopped teaching yoga. I didn't feel that FOMO of not being able to go out and party with my friends. Like I didn't go out to eat. It really over 2020 really taught me like the core lesson of just getting to the core of how I want to spend my time, especially so when I moved off the grid and I was like, okay, like what do I do with myself? Like
Right. But yeah, I think you're right too, because it also like realigned us really like hardcore. Like it was just like, okay, I can breathe. That's the first thing. Like I'm breathing, my kids are here for me. My husband's here, and then everything else was just like kind of bonus stuff, but it really has also, I love to travel, and I love, going to see art and this and that and the other thing. But at the same time, like, I'm like very comfortable working from home, very comfortable, like with the shift, very comfortable, almost even when you think about how much we consume as well, consuming in terms of content and food and clothes and luxury and this and that and the other thing. And 2020 really had us like, I mean, for me, it was even who I was giving my energy to, like online friends, and they were friends and everything like that. But I was spending so much more time with them than I was with my own family, that you really start to think like it shifted things. And for a lot of people, and I'm not saying that other people, but like there's hard things that we've had to go through with COVID as well. And I'm not discounting like the things that are just tragic about this as well. But there has been this like natural shedding of things that just don't matter. It's like, I don't know if you've seen Fight Club before. Like,
I don't think so.
okay, she's just like, whatever doesn't matter, let it slide, And I think that for people who are trying to get back into their time management, they have to get rid of that stuff.
Right. Yeah. And get to know, like I mentioned earlier, like get to know what is the stuff that you want to do, like truly deeply what nourishes you, what nurtures you. And yeah, when we spend our time just working, we don't know, we forget how to not work. And so yeah, this year was really challenging for sure for for me, for everybody. Like it was definitely a wake up call. And yeah, like I said, you know, rock bottom in society. That was like our society's sort of burnout moment. And the country's Pluto transit doesn't even happen for 2 more years. Like, what are we gonna do in 2 years? So yeah.
Yeah, but it's almost like it's kind of preparing us in you know, in big, I don't, I don't want to say big ugly chunks of our lives have been ripped off, but no, but I really feel like this is a point where we understood that we couldn't go forward in the same way, but also understanding that the way that we were going forward wasn't working for a lot of people.
For the majority, honestly, like even my parents, you know, they have it in their mind that they need to work, and they, you know, I could get into political beliefs or whatnot, but you know, from a personal perspective of like, I need to work to survive. And it's like, but you are surviving, you're more than surviving, you have all of these things. And society is really the one that's making you think that you don't have enough. And so, yeah, it comes back down to enoughness, like a lot of this, as well as I also like just thought of I'm reading a book right now about like the physics of time. And
Okay.
so it's really interesting. Yeah, it's called The Order of Time, but he's Carlo Rovelli. He's an Italian physicist, quantum mechanics physicist. And so he basically is stating, disproving that time is actually real, kind of. And what's really important about it is Aristotle defined time as something that just measures change. And so when we think of time management, we think of control. We think of like, I need to make my schedule perfect. I need to get more and more and more and more. And when we think we have control over time, that's when we cause ourselves suffering. That's when we cause ourselves to struggle. And so that's why I think of yoga with time as well, is because yoga is literally just changing all the time, just breathing with the change. You know, any spiritual practice is teaching us how to be with change. And so it's really important to know that if you are trying to manage your time by controlling it, by constricting it, just like Elizabeth Gilbert says, with creativity, it has its life of its own. Time has a life of its own. It's not going to be happy when you try and like put your talents into the time. And you got to learn how to like work with it and flow with it and move with it. So yeah, it all comes back down to like, for me, that's why I loved this conversation. And what you do is time is spiritual, like in its essence. It's spirituality. It's your connection to life, to the universe. And when you aren't spending your time in the way that if you feel most connected to your spirit and to the universe, it's never going to feel good at all. Like there's no chance. So there's no point in trying to control it. You just be friends with it and have fun and flow with it. And once that happens, like it just, you don't have to work as hard and, you know, all the other external things that we've talked about. But yeah, just come back to universe, spirit.
I love that. Like that was the best summary ever. like yes. Yeah, because that's the thing. We only have these moments, and if we're flitting them away, doing things that don't feel good and don't feed our souls, then why are we even entrepreneurs to begin with? Or, you know, like how can we shift back into a place where what we do is more in alignment and getting rid of all of that unnecessary stuff. And like you said, I mean, this year, if nothing else, taught us that time like really does some funky stuff. Like some days are like, oh, that was like 5 seconds. And some days are like, it's January 315. You know, last week, for example, in America, was like last week was like, whew, yeah.
Yeah.
So, but
I know
love
time is just like, I call it a morphing blob.
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
as our businesses are, like trying to figure out, like when you're starting your business, like trying to figure out what you do. It's like a morphing blob. Every time you like try to grab for it, it like just like disappears and morphs into something else. And so,
Yeah.
backing up, trust that you're spending your time on the right things. And to do that, you need to know what the right things are for you. And yeah.
Yeah. So if somebody wanted to work with you, would they like set up a discovery call and then you would start, kind of assessing what their values are and do stuff like that? Or how does that work?
Yeah, so I have a quiz. You can find out what your time savvy superpower is, which I think
Ooh.
is super fun. I love my quiz that I created. And, that kind of obviously leads to working with me. And so I really, we create a roadmap of like, what topics within time management like you really feel like you need to work on, whether it's focusing, whether it's aligning your tools, your calendar, your to-do list with your values. Like there's so many different things within time management. I have like a cute little diagram of all the different things that go into holistically managing your time. And yeah, you can just schedule a discovery call. It's on my website, and we can create a roadmap and like see, over the time frame, it just getting aligned and clear and spending your time in the way that you want to. Um, and then all the shifts happen from there.
Wow. Wow. And how long do you usually work with somebody? Like 3 months, 6 months, 3 weeks? How does that work?
Yeah, so it's right now. I actually just changed it like a couple weeks ago. That was like one of the things that like I changed, and then I was like, whatever. Previously I worked for 3 months, and I noticed that with my clients and myself, like I took 8 years to make like
Right.
these changes. And so I just expanded it from 3 months to 6 months. So it's a 6 month minimum commitment, one call a month, and every month we focus on like a specific thing within the roadmap, a theme, if you will. It's like a monthly theme where we focus on just that one thing, whether it's mindfulness, adding more mindfulness into your day to day, whether it's working less. One of my clients' goal right now is to go from like 45 hours a week to 30. And so, we're going to talk about creating a schedule that allows you to do everything that you want within those 30 hours. So yeah, like it really is customized and personal to like where you are in your time management journey, which the quiz will kind of help you figure out your superpower, like where to start.
Oh, that's really, really good because I feel like that's, taking each person as an individual also is really important because it's just not like a nice little bow on the box kind of thing.
No, not at all. Like I feel like with entrepreneurs, like we're either like, there's 4 groups, and I would say majority are either super planners and they plan every moment, and then they stress themselves out when it doesn't go to plan because it never does. And then the other kind of group is like people who hate planning and they're super fluid and flexible and flowy and haven't found out what time management techniques actually work for them. And so I find that the majority of people are in those 2 camps. So like, even so there's 2 other ones, and I'm sure, there's a lot more, but yeah, it's really important to honor who you are. That's like the foundation of everything.
Right, right. But do you feel though like a little structure with you flow people is gonna
So it really is, it's an interesting experiment, right? Like I think of time management as an experiment. We're all throwing at spaghetti at the wall and trying to see what sticks and what feels good. And I find that I'm pretty flowy with how I use digital calendars, how I use like the tools and techniques of time management. So like I basically take all the techniques of time management, like time blocking, for example, and I'm like, let's flip it on its head and just see how that feels for you. And just, like I said, exploring, experimenting, seeing what works. And really for the flowy people who don't like planning, like the issue or pain point or biggest area for growth is that you you react to the day, excuse me. And so
yeah.
there's no strategy of like getting things done. It's just always in reaction mode, which causes our nervous systems to be upset. And there's a lot of physical things that happen as well as mental. And in our businesses. And so it's all about finding like what strategies and structure like actually feel good to you.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Thank you so much. So, Becca Rich, again, from the Holistic Time Coach. I put your website details in the comments. And so, yeah, I really, really appreciate you taking the time today and chatting with me about this. I feel like it was a really great conversation. So, thanks again for your time.
Yeah.
And
Thank you, Sue. Thank
Okay,
you.
you're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you. Everybody, this was Becca Rich from theholistictimecoach.com. And she has a fun quiz that you can check out. And if you want to get your time management aligned in alignment in a way that feels good and doesn't feel super managing and stressed out, you can check out Becca's quiz and even schedule a discovery call with her. So thanks again, and we will talk soon. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.